What is up? It's your boy J&W Boss in the building. We are back here for another episode of Behind the Action, which will go over all ACW lore. And if you're wondering how ACW has lore, well, this is a combination of All Out Action and All Out Revolution, two previously done universe modes rolled into one. And last time around, we talked about the All Out Action Tag Team Championship, which will be found in the card up above or the pinned comment down below. And so this time around, we're going to cover everything involving the All Out Action Tag World Championship. And we are going to go over a lot of information here. So let's go ahead and hop on to it. So the first ever All Out Action World Champion was Monter. He won it via live simulation tournament. And here were the guys he defeated right here. Now, I will say about Monter's title reign, this title reign can really be split into two sagas, the Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian saga, and then the Reaper and Forsaken saga, which definitely they both take their own little unique twist and turn. So let's go ahead and get into it here, because Monter's first major title defense was against Jay Morgan at Most Wanted inside of a steel cage. But this, to get there, it involved three different dynamics here. First off, you had Monter, who was a pretty dominant world champion, who on episode 1 pretty much hinted that he had this mentor / master who been kind of showing him the ropes and everything. You had Jay Morgan, who all he wanted to do was challenge for the world championship in peace. And then you had Austin Kazarian, who for some particular reason couldn't take a hint that he was not wanted. And this led to the following thing. Number one, Austin Kazarian coming out on episode 1 and pretty much wanting to form an alliance with Monster, only for Monster to not verbally respond. So Austin Kazarian decided to double down on that by in the main event getting involved in a non-title matchup between Monster and Jay Morgan. This led to episode 2, in which Austin Kazarian, Richard Rich, and Jay Cash successfully defeated the team of Jay Morgan and Wolfpack, and it will be right here where I will retroactively withdraw my statement saying that Wolfpack was not in episode 2 when they were, but I just somehow completely glossed over. My apologies. Then this led to episode 3, where after Austin Kazarian beat Apollo Crews, yes, because I was still using real life wrestlers at the time, Austin Kazarian was then proceeded to be chokeslammed by Monster. Also, Monster on that same show successfully defeated Jason Wells in a champion versus champions match, and then got into a fight with Jay Morgan after the fact. Now, you would think after getting chokeslammed, Austin Kazarian would have got the hint that he's not wanted, he's not needed, he's not cared about. Well, you will be wrong, actually, because on episode 4, Austin Kazarian comes out and downplayed the fact that he got chokeslammed, indicating that those two are still cool and everything is all good. And he was even able to get a matchup change that was supposed to be himself versus Monster, changed for a 2-on-1 handicap match when they took on Jay Morgan. Fortunately for Jay Morgan, Morgan actually won this matchup and even beat Austin Kazarian with a steel chair after the fact. Hopefully that'll teach him to mind his business. And of course it doesn't, because right before the matchup at Most Wanted, Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian get into a backstage altercation. Then after the matchup, in which Monster successfully retained the world title inside of a steel cage, Austin Kazarian comes out again and go for the attack to Jay Morgan, only for Monster to get involved and pretty much kind of get him off of Jay Morgan. And pretty much, yeah. And so that pretty much concludes the first part of this arc between Monster, Kazarian, and Morgan, with Kazarian seemingly not being able to take a hint for whatever reason. And of course, you got Jay Morgan, looking like a strong dude, looking like a beast, standing up to the mammoth of a man and Monster as the world champion. So after being physically attacked and all of this other stuff, you had to wonder where everything was going to go with Monster and his world title reign from here. Well, it actually takes a little bit of an interesting direction going into Conquer All, because we have a 10-minute Iron Man Pick Your Poison Challenge thing, where basically Monster, Jay Morgan, and Kazarian will compete in respective Pick Your Poison matches. And the winner will get a match of their choosing at the Conquer All pay-per-view, and it kicked off promptly on episode number 5. So on episode 5, Monster pretty much reminds the entire world that he wants nothing to do with Austin Kazarian, as he should. Then later on, he also wants someone to challenge him for the World Championship. We will get to who did that in a minute. And Jay Morgan has kicked us off here in the Pick Your Poison stipulation. He mentioned that his opponent was picked by Austin Kazarian, and his opponent was Samoa Joe. Jay Morgan didn't do halfway bad and actually got 2 falls against Samoa Joe, so not a bad start for Morgan. Now, about who challenged Monster for the world title. Yeah, don't ask questions. Again, this was during the time where I was using real life wrestlers on the show. And so, yeah, Monster took on The Undertaker, and thank goodness I did the right thing and have Monster beat Undertaker. Good. That's the last time you ever see him in AOA, period. So, thank goodness for that. Am I right? All right, cool. Moving on. Episode 6, it is Austin Kazarian's turn, mentioning that his opponent was picked by Jay Morgan, and if he wins, he wants his matchup to be a #1 contender match against Jay Morgan for the world title. Wait a second, why in the world did he not just pick a world title match? That would have made a heck of a lot more sense. That would have made a lot more sense than doing what he just did. Okay, then. Anyway, he actually doesn't do too bad. He actually gets 3 falls against Brock, one of them being a count out and 2 of them being by pinfall. So right now, Austin Kazarian is sitting pretty. And then on the following episode, episode 7, it is Monster's turn. He mentioned that his opponent was picked by both Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian. Wait a minute, Monster didn't even get a chance to pick anybody's opponent. How the heck was this even fair? Oh well, whatever. Then he ends up taking on Forsaken and beat him 5-0. And because of this win, Monster was actually wanting a triple threat match against both men, so even further indication that Monster wants absolutely nothing to do with this man. And so it seems at that moment, Austin Kazarian finally got the hint and attacked him with a kendo stick, pretty much leaving him laying. Now fast forward to the go-home show with Monster versus Austin Kazarian Fall Count Anywhere, in which Monster picked up the win. Now, let's go back to the top here. Remember how I said everybody had their own individual matches that they wanted? And by the way, I forgot to say Jay Morgan's match, but Jay Morgan wanted a one-on-one World Championship match with Austin Kazarian banned from the building. Austin wanted a #1 contender match, and since Monster won the whole thing, he should have gotten his triple threat match. Yeah, that didn't happen. So this is what happened instead. On the Conqueror pre-show, you had Brock Lesnar attack Austin Kazarian from behind. Then ZI decided to finally make his first public appearance on screen and make the matchup a fatal 4-way instead. On the main show, however, Monster did defeat all 3 men and retained his world championship, and ZI came out with Forsaken and Reaper after the fact, pretty much indicating that things were going to go in a different direction going forward. And this pretty much concludes the Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian saga. For the record of what everybody did after the fact, Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian would go on to have their rivalry, which led to a couple of matches across pay-per-views and episodes and such. Brock Lesnar and Austin Kazarian would actually have a matchup at the Last Stand pay-per-view, the very next pay-per-view. And, well, we're going to get into what Monster did coming up next. So the following episode, AOA episode 9, you have the Ice coming out, and he does the following thing. First, he mentions that he isn't in an alliance with Forsaken and Reaper by any stretch of the means. He really came out with them to indicate that he's proud of them and proud of what they're doing, and he got something in mind for the both of them. First, he put Forsaken in a United States Championship match against A2J. He will go on to win that, but that's not too important right now. The second thing he does is he makes a World Championship matchup between Reaper and Monster for the Last Stand pay-per-view. Also, then Reaper later in that same night is attacked by a mystery man, but we don't know who he is, but he conveniently had the initials of MM on the back. The only hoodie I've ever seen with initials on the back of it, and the fact that security let this man in is a big-time oversight. What is wrestling? It ain't supposed to make sense a lot of the time. Deal with it. On episode 10, Monster beats the snot out of Brandon Storm. Justice for Brandon Storm. This dude did not deserve that. Episode 11, Reaper gets attacked again, and this time it's made worse because he is supposed to be in a tag match with Forsaken against A2J and Monster. And I will say, this was going bad until Reaper shows up, runs wild for a bit, and then leaves again. Why'd you leave? Or if you weren't going to show up, if you were actually fine to show up and you just didn't, then why did you show up, do what you did, and leave? That didn't make a whole lot of sense, Reaper, but okay. On AOA episode 12, Reaper gets revenge on the guy that attacked him, and then comes out, cuts the promo indicating that he feels that Monster is behind it. I wonder why. You literally have MM on the back of your hoodie. And he wants to make his matchup with Monster at Last Stand, a last man standing match. Then he beat David in a no disqualification match, and then Monster attacked him from behind. And so fast forwarding to last stand, during the last man standing match, Monster picks up the win, and then Nate Shield debuts in the series. Now, this is actually kind of a big deal at the time because if you were watching the channel back then, I was using Nate Shield as a part of my career series on WWE 2K17. It's true this mo for glitching out on me, but this was the first time I did the crossover and brought him into the series, so for the time, it was a cool moment, and it was a nice little reveal. So with Monster being the world champion, the now mentor of Monster being revealed as Nate Shield, what did Nate Shield do in the series? Well, this dude decided to waste no time whatsoever because on the following episode, he proceeded to beat the snot out of the ice, take over the show, and does the following thing. Number one, make Forsaken versus Monster for the world championship at next level. Number two, makes himself and Monster versus the club for the tag team championship, which they would go on to win. Number three, makes an impromptu United States championship match with Forsaken taking on A2J, which Nate Shields and company would actually cost Forsaken the United States title. And finally, in the main event, himself and Monster versus Reaper in a handicap match. And just when you think everything is going well for Nate Shields and company, out comes DI, who also does a series of things. Number one, strip Nate Shields and Monster of the tag team titles. Number two, make the world championship contested under 24/7 rule, which ended at Onslaught, the following pay-per-view after Next Level. Number three, he also makes Nate Shields have his own little matchup in the following week. And number four, adds Reaper to the world championship matchup at Next Level. Which brings us to the following episode, in which Forsaken tries to act on this 24/7 rule, but Reaper pretty much tells them to not do it because he feels that Nate Shields and Monster will be waiting for him. Admittedly, Reaper kind of got a little bit of a head on straight there, because that does make sense. You're in a triple threat match with the guy the following pay-per-view. Yeah, they're going to be expecting you two, if anything, to go after the title. Well, Forsaken wasn't really cool with that, called him stupid, slaps him. Tony Woods tried to go for it later, and poor dude pretty much just got clapped for it. Anyways, in the meantime, Monster came out, beat the brakes off of Fatu to pretty much eliminate any potential challenger for his world championship. Smart man. Jay Morgan then goes on to have his match with Nate Shields with Monster in his corner. Again, I got no clue why. For Jay Morgan to win, and then he tried to go after Monster for the world championship, but Monster flees the scene. Why didn't I have Monster just beat the guy? I got no freaking idea. He did it twice before, numerous times before. He could have just added one more. He can do his resume. That's all I'm saying. Final episode before Next Level, Forsaken goes to talk to Reaper about his mindset. Reaper says he is ready for tonight, but apologizes that his head was not on straight. Because apparently Reaper's been dealing with some stuff, man. He felt like he had something to prove at last stand and all that stuff, and I kind of don't blame the man. But he is ready for the six-man tag, and he better be, because it is Jay Morgan, Forsaken, and Reaper versus the team of Austin Kazarian, Monster, and Nate Shields. Fun fact, again, Jay Morgan and Austin Kazarian, they were still feuding, and they had a matchup at Next Level. The Reaper, Forsaken, and Jay Morgan ended up picking up the win, but it was due to a little bit of miscommunication. Forsaken at one point was trying to go for a spear. At the same time, Reaper was trying to go for a choke slam. They end up working it out and still getting the win, but this didn't really fit too well with Reaper. Reaper leaves the ring. Jay Morgan tries to comfort the big man. Probably not the best idea because he got the snot kicked out of him for it. Reaper called Forsaken selfish, and that pretty much ends that if we get to Next Level. Jumping to the Next Level pay-per-view, Forsaken and Reaper tried to make amends by going after the tag team title, only for Reaper to do what he does best. Come out, goes crazy, cause damage, walks out, counts out happen. They are not the tag team champions. Forsaken, of course, not really happy that his time was wasted, proceeded to beat the snot out of Reaper in the backstage area. All that tension built to the triple threat matchup, which Monster retained, and then pretty much this happened. Reaper off the show. Oh my God! Check this out! Oh! God, this is not the way you go about it. Oh, Lord. Yeah, so this pretty much sends Reaper down his own little path of destruction here. That's definitely going to be covered in his own video. And Forsaken here, yeah, he's gone for a long time after that. So that pretty much concludes the saga of Monster with Reaper and Forsaken. If you notice, a lot of this build will really focus on everything involving Reaper and his headspace and everything, leading up to this moment here where he probably kicks Forsaken into oblivion and then beats this man into a coma straight up. So by this point, we've seen Monster technically have 3 or 4 defenses, all of them ending pretty decisively, and Monter looking pretty dominant throughout, winning a fatal four-way and now a triple threat. But let's see who's next on the oh, right. He immediately loses the world title to Destry Tarleton, and the 24/7 rule still being in effect. And we also see Austin Kazarian beat Brock Lesnar to become the #1 contender for the world title with Onslaught. Well, then. So much for that, Rand. I mean, then again, you can argue again, it was 24/7 rules, so anything can happen, and you want to see that shock value, that shock factor sometimes. So this was definitely that shock value and shock factor. And now with Destry as the world champion, we're going to see where it goes. The following episode, he cuts the promo pretty much knowing that he had a target on his back, and 24/7 rule still in effect, so there's that too. And later on, he would have a 6-man tag as himself, Mac Wolf, and Johnny River defeated the team of AJ Styles, Austin Kazarian, and A2J. Somehow, none of those other guys decided to go after the world title. On episode 20, the go-home show before the Onslaught pay-per-view, Jay Morgan beats Austin Kazarian as a part of their little rivalry, and Destry Tarleton as they take it on Reaper. Their match gets interrupted due to Jay Morgan attacking Reaper and Austin Kazarian attacking Destry. Again, Austin and Destry, they were going to go fight for the world title on Onslaught, and Jay Morgan and Reaper kind of gotten into it. They were on their way to a street fight, giving Reaper's little path of destruction. Admittedly, that started on the go-home show next level, so continuity and storytelling. Fast forward to the Onslaught pay-per-view where, wait a second, I actually got to talk about a couple of things first. So around the time, I was actually in a little bit of a partnership with XTV World here. And around that time, they had their TakeOver San Antonio show, or TakeOver Dallas show, I believe it was called. And King Kong added 2 new members of the New World Nation as a heel faction. And so the 2 members that were involved were Dwayne Frost and Nate Shield, and then by proxy, Monster. So they did change a couple of things relating to the Onslaught pay-per-view as we were beginning to build toward a pay-per-view known as Collide, which you probably saw me and Cole do for season 2. So keep that in mind. This does put some things with the World Championship on the back burner, as you will hear going forward. And everything on the AOA side of things pretty much kicked off at Onslaught, so let's get into it. At Onslaught, Austin Kazarian took on Destry Tarleton. Fun fact, it was the opening match of the show because A2J and Johnny River main evented the show. Destry ended up picking up the win and retaining the World Championship. Later on, he was attacked by King Kong, which pretty much allowed for Monster to take advantage of the 24/7 rule and get his world title back. And I'm pretty sure since nobody probably wanted to fight Monster, no one else went after him after that. Oh, and then at the tail end of the show, you have Dave coming out, getting in the face of King Kong. So that pretty much ends the whole 24/7 rule. That show pretty much ended the 24/7 rule for the world title. Admittedly, good concept, bad execution on my part, because not a lot of people went after it, and a couple of plot holes in there that didn't make a ton of sense. Either way, Monster is on his second reign as world champion as we are edging towards breaking boundaries, but there's one episode I got to talk about in particular on that road to it. AOA episode 22, and with the New World Nation pretty much caught the full-on riot because Darren Tarleton and Destry Tarleton said they were going to stand and they were going to fight for all out action and NXT and professional wrestling. They cut a pretty good guy promo and challenged Nate Shields and Dwayne Frost and getting their happy-go-lucky tail out here. They show up. They beat the snot out of those 2, and a full-on riot breaks out with King Kong attacking VI, Monster attacking a whole lot of other people, and look at Brian Cage. Yeah, one of the shorter careers in AOA history, but it is what it is. Anyway, the New World Nation takes over, called the full-on riot, and by that moment, that takes us to AOA episode 23, where King Kong pretty much took over the show. And we changed the arena, we changed all of that stuff, and the following matches occurred. Monster took on the team of Young Lee and Tenshi in a 2-on-1 handicap match with Monster picking up the win. And then in the main event, Nate Shields versus Dave happened in a last man standing match. And after the matchup, Darren Tarleton came out, put a beat down on Nate, put a beat down on Nate. I was about to say Dave, but I think we got a long way to go before that happened. AOA episode 24, we have Dave beating down Dwayne Frost and then put Nate Shields through a table. And then later on in the night, Monster defeats Destry. So by that logic, I want to see if you guys can take a guess what the Breaking Boundaries match was. Because literally what I just read was the go home show for that show. Y'all probably don't have one, do you? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. It was Monster versus Dave in a tables match. Yeah, this build really didn't look like it now, did it? Yeah, I didn't think it did. So Monster versus Dave in a very kind of underwhelming tables match for the World Championship. And by this point, we're on the road to World Collide. AOA episode 25, UFC is announcing that the World Championship rematch was going to take place. Nothing happened on 26 for whatever reason. And then on episode 27, you have Darren pretty much hunting down New World Nation members, and he wants to get his hands on Monster specifically. Monster says, okay, bet, and puts his hands on him anyway.
Oh my goodness, caught in the arm. And oh my gosh!
AOA episode 28, the rematch takes place. Monster versus Dave, which ends to be a double countout and leads to a massive brawl in the final moments of All Out action leading into World Collide. At World Collide, you had an elimination 4-on-4 matchup, and it was the team of Big Trap, Dave, Destry, and Darren Darton taking on the entire New World Nation, or the majority of them, as King Kong, Nate Shield, Dwayne Frost, and Monster. It got down to Darren Tarleton and King Kong, with Darren Tarleton, thus meaning Team Big Trap picked up the win here. And this leads to probably a very, very wild ride in AOA history. So buckle up, because it's now time for the Tarleton saga of All Out action. Following the events of World Collide, we make our way to AOA's next pay-per-view, Dead on Arrival, in which all you need to do is pretty much show the face of Darren Tarleton, because this was pretty much his pay-per-view. But we'll get to that in a minute. We had to first get through a elimination winner's choice fatal four-way, where it was Chaos, Mac Wolf, Reaper, and Darren. Here was how it worked. If you were eliminated first, you received nothing. If you were eliminated second, you received a shot at the Tag Team Championship with a partner of your choosing. If you were eliminated third, aka the runner-up, you received a shot at the All-Star Championship, as the United States Championship was already covered via Battle Royal several weeks prior. And if you won the match, you were the #1 contender for the world title, in which Darren actually picked up the win there. So congratulations to him. On episode 30, you had Monster taking on Brock Lesnar. Monster wins, but Darren tried to go to tag Monster. However, Nate intercepts him. Yeah, just like Darren Tarleton wasn't really too happy about the attack, he also wasn't happy that Destry had the audacity to shake hands with the enemy, as he shook hands with Dwayne Frost, leading to Dwayne Frost actually beating the snot out of him, so Darren may have had a point. Anyways, while Darren was addressing his anger and frustration with Destry, he also revealed that he had a second match at Dead on Arrival now in Nate Shield, so Darren is now competing in 2 matches on that show. And I think to this date, he's the only person to ever actually do that. Also in the main event, it was Monster and Nate Shield as they beat the team of Brock Lesnar and Darren. On the go-home show, Darren called Nate Shield a match with JB because, yes, around this time, All Out Revolution were having their tournament to kick off their episode that would kick off after Dead on Arrival. Little fun fact for you guys. And Darren went on to beat Brandon Storm in the main event. Darren goes to fight Monster, and he actually lays him out, pretty much. So, Dead on Arrival, as I said, pretty much is the Darren Tarleton show, which pretty much went like this. Darren Tarleton pretty much cut an interview realizing how crazy he is for doing this, but is completely okay with it, only to then go on and have a close to 30-minute matchup with Nate Shields, where if you are a technical purist, finishes meant nothing by the time this match was over. Then after that just about 30-minute battle that Nate Shields actually won, Nate Shields does damage even further by putting him to the announce table. Then right before Darren has his second matchup, Darren gets in the face of Dwayne Frost. They start throwing blows, only for Destry to make the save. After Destry makes the save, Darren goes out there and he proceeds to get beat from pillar to post and back at the hands of Monster and pretty much beat the full-blown snot out of him. However, Darren, fighting through all the adversity, blood, sweat, and tears and everything, wins, pins Monster 1, 2, 3, and is the new All Out Action World Champion, and probably one of the more memorable title changes in series history. What a freaking match, what a moment, and what a great show Dead on Arrival was overall, and what a reign we are about to get into. So buckle up, because Darren's ride with this World Championship is freaking insane. Before I get to Darren's world title reign, I got to mention the Ultimate Mission Battle Royal. This was before we had the Ultimate Mission Gauntlet match that you're seeing now. Here's how the Battle Royal worked. There were 3 tiers. Tier 1, 6 guys would come out, and it was pretty much an over-the-top rope Battle Royal. You win, you move on to Tier 2. 5 more guys will come out. Again, over-the-top rope Battle Royal. Move on to Tier 3. Over-the-top rope Battle Royal until you get down to the final 2, in which at that moment you will win by pinfall or submission. And if you won, you're on the shot at the World Championship at AOA Armageddon. Now, here's the part where you say this reminds you of Vince Russo booking. Pretty much. Or any Strength TNA stipulation match from the year of 2000. There you go. Anyways, let's get into Darren Tarleton's official reign. AOA episode 33, you had Darren cutting a promo happy about the fact that he's the world champion. VI's also agreed and says that Johnny Rivers, who was in Tier 1 of the Battle Royal, will face the #1 contender, which VI dubbed to be Dave. If Dave wins, he keeps his spot. If Johnny wins, Johnny replaces Dave as the #1 contender. So the #1 contender has a tendency to be a revolving door, leading into Mission X. That's a fun way to mix things up. Dave would actually end up picking up the win and keeping his spot. However, we also have to talk about AOR episode 2, because on AOR episode 2, there was a battle royal. That battle royal was used to determine the final slot in the Ultimate Mission battle royal. So the winner of this match pretty much got a huge opportunity, and that opportunity was given to Andrew Lance. AOA episode 34, you had Darren taking on Sean Wright, who admittedly Darren was being a little bit disrespectful to Sean at certain points. Andrew does come out and get in the face of Darren, and well, Darren was not really having that, hearing that crap from no rookie, and Darren Tarleton actually attacked Andrew Lance and beat the snot out of him. Dwayne Frost actually then beat Dave and takes his #1 contendership spot, so Dave is now in the Battle Royal instead of being in a world title matchup. On AOR episode 3, Christina Miller had Darren show up to make an apology, but of course he's Darren Tarleton. I mean, why the heck would this man make a freaking apology? Well, JB comes out and he's not having that. Those two get into a verbal debate only for Darren Tarleton to beat the snot out of him. Well, if you attack JB, you kind of got to deal with his homie. So on AOA episode 35, Big Mac comes out, get revenge for his partner by beating up Darren in the parking lot. VI is really getting sick and tired of Darren and his actions to make him defend the World Championship match right there tonight. And he gives that opportunity to Johnny Rivers. Darren wins, and given how great that matchup was, Darren had no choice but to show respect there. Oh, and also Dwayne beat his buddy Nate Shields to keep his spot in what was actually a classic matchup between the two, if you ask me. That episode, honestly, episode 35, fantastic. Loved it. One of my favorite episodes, period. Go home show to Mission X. Dwayne Frost is happy that he's #1 contender. Darren is not, though, and pretty much mentioned how while he's doing stuff with the New World Nation, Darren already kind of did everything and anything Dwayne ever wanted to do. They get into a brawl with Dwayne standing tall. Dwayne Frost and Nate Shields will later win a 3-on-2 handicap match against Young Lee, Tenshi, and Dave. And then Darren beats Reaper for the AOA World Championship because VI would not finish punishing this man. Oh, and by the way, there was another qualification match too. So safe to say, Darren went into Mission X in a bad way. Oh, and by the way, Reaper had a tag title match at Mission X. We're going to cover that later. At Mission X, Dwayne Frost and Darren pretty much had a 15-minute sprint with Darren Tarleton picking up the win. And then after Andrew Lance wins the Ultimate Mission Battle Royal, Darren reveals Matthew Storm and Chris Crawburn pretty much bringing X Attack into the fold. And they beat the snot out of Andrew Lance. So I hope you noticed throughout this entire time, Darren is kind of slowly slipping into I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want. Ain't nobody going to stop me. And would you believe me if I told you it gets worse as we get to Warzone and Armageddon? Well, you're about to believe me now. AOA episode 37, Destry gets on Darren for bringing in X Attack and all that other stuff, only for Darren to say, I will do what I want, and walks out. Jay Morgan beats A2J to become the #1 contender at Warzone, only for Darren Tarleton to come out and beat the snot out of Jay Morgan. On AOA episode 38, Jay Morgan is happy and he's ready to go about becoming the #1 contender and being the world champion and all the other stuff. And he even said he's willing to go through Destry to do it. However, you don't say Destry's name and expect him not to show up, so he does. Darren also showed up and started cracking jokes on Destry and Jay Morgan and tried to talk Destry out of teaming up with Jay Morgan to take on Storm and Crossburn. Well, that didn't really work, and Dexter still teamed up with Jay Morgan anyways, and Matthew Thorman, Chris Crawford gets the win. Also, Darren gets in VI face and pretty much beats the snot out of him because, well, he can, and who are you going to do to stop him? That pretty much sets up Darren versus NXTV's T-Von. Following episode, AOA episode 39, X Attack is pretty much bragging about what they always do, and Darren beats T-Von for the win. Episode 40, Jay Morgan takes on Nate Shields. Nate Shields picks up the win. He goes to attack Jay Morgan, but Darren go ahead and make the save only to attack Jay himself. Got the promo about what he's going to do to Jay Morgan at Warzone, only for Jay Morgan to get back to his feet and start throwing hands, beating the snot out of Darren Tarleton here, sending one final message to Warzone. And speaking of sending messages, Darren did just that at Warzone by getting in Jay Morgan's head about everything involving his girlfriend and whatever the deal leading into their World Championship match. Darren, for the record, actually ended up beating Jay Morgan for the world title and then have to deal with Andrew Lance attacking him after the matchup, which really wasn't the wisest idea. And then again, by this point, Andrew Lance wasn't really dealing with the best type of momentum because earlier in the show, he literally lost to Aleister Black, the guy he was in the final two with at Mission X. So we're right now on the road to Armageddon at this point with Darren Tarleton and Andrew Lance. And things, again, get really dicey. So the road to Armageddon is real interesting for both men. I mean, you have Andrew Lance trying to look good ahead of his world title match, but it ain't really working. Really only getting one win against Jay Morgan. And then you have DI trying to make Darren's life miserable by putting him in a 3-on-1 gauntlet match against the club. Yet they were still around by this point. And then you also have him putting him, and then you have DI putting him in matches with guys like Forsaken. Darren just walked out and said, screw that, I'm not dealing with that. He did beat Aleister Black, but he did lose a 6-man tag on the go-home episode. However, him and Lance did a face-off right after the fact, and pretty much Lance is saying that Doubt is getting angry at Darren. He's getting angry at the fans for not believing in him. And he says he ain't going in to put on a classic. He's going in to win the world championship. And Darren pretty much said, dude, this is the first time you said anything that interested me. And he pretty much mentioned how he's league above Andrew Lance and he's going to leave Armageddon with the world title. Then at Armageddon, we get Tale of Two People again. Andrew Lance is all nervous and sweating his matchup to the point where JB have to come in and talk the man down. And then you have Darren Tarleton, who gave his 15 seconds of fame promo, which admittedly probably one of the better promos I've ever had him cut. And then we get to the World Championship matchup where Scorpion Darren Tarleton takes on Andrew Lance. And Andrew Lance actually lost despite looking really, really good at certain points during that matchup. But Darren Tarleton wins and closes out season 1 as your AOA World Champion. And by this, I will say Darren Tarleton has cemented himself as probably the half-ass savage of all-out action, giving himself all types of names, the 5-star machine, the best in the biz. I gave him the King of Super Kick moniker, all of this other stuff, and it has encapsulated his World Championship reign and his matches perfectly. He done some good stuff. He did some great matches, had some cool moments, had some cool segments. This dude probably had the best world title reign, hands down, so far. And we will see how the dice continue to roll going into season 2. Episode 45, first ever episode of season 2. Darren pretty much cut the promo claiming that he's ready and willing to take on everybody. Monster then beats Johnny Rivers in the main event and gets attacked by Dave. I mentioned that for a specific reason. On AOA episode 46, you have Darren Tarleton taking on A2J, which ends via DQ thanks to Aleister Black, and then a massive brawl between Aleister Black, Darren Tarleton, A2J, and AJ Styles lead to an elimination chamber being announced with the addition of James Black and Mac Wolf, who had their own little rivalry going on at the time. Then on AOA episode 47, a lot of the chamber participants are involved in a whole lot of things. Here we go. You have Mac Wolf costing James Black the United States Championship. You have A2J, who lost to Johnny Rivers. A2J beat Brandon Storm. Andrew Lance takes Aleister Black's spot in the chamber. Yeah, so earlier on in the show, Andrew Lance got in the face of Aleister Black, saying if he's so confident that he can beat him again, actually do it and put his chamber spot on the line. Aleister Black agreed. Andrew Lance actually won the match. So way to go, man. You get your retribution from Warzone, and that's pretty much the last time we saw Black in the series, I believe. Yeah, that was the last time. Monster attacks Andrew Lance, but then gets into a brawl with Darren because monsters just don't like Andrew Lance, and who did by this point? Poor Andrew Lance. You were the AOR career that really should have did something. Oh well. AOA episode 48, you have Mac Wolf who confront Darren, but then gets attacked by James Black. AJ Styles then beats Mac Wolf, and then you had Monster who beat Darren in the main event. Go home show, you had A2J confronting Darren Tarleton. You had Andrew Lance losing to Johnny Rivers, because of course he lost to Johnny Rivers. You had Mac Wolf versus James Black in the South of the Border Brawl, in which Mac Wolf ended up picking up the win. Now, let me go ahead and give a little bit of context here. At this point, the rivalry between Mac Wolf and James Black was still going on, and you'll hear me cover that, why that was in the United States Championship video. But this was a matchup where the only way you won was by knockout or submission. And they were in Mexico, so South of the Border Brawl, apropos location, whatever the deal. Mac Wolf picked up the win regardless. At the Conquer All pay-per-view, you had Dave defeating Monster in a #1 contenders match, and Darren retains his world title inside the Elimination Chamber. However, Mr. Bloomberg wants Dave to face Darren right there, right now. And Dave ends up picking up the win, so we have a new world champion. And if you're Darren, what a freaking run, man. I mean, great run. Fantastic moments, matches, segment, and it goes out in a blaze of glory because it was reaching the point where you couldn't really boo Darren despite him being a freaking heel. Had to run with it. I had to run with it. Dave is the new world champion, and this is where things get really good. Even more, because I think Dave's run was pretty solid as the world champion too, but y'all let me know after hearing all this. Episode 50, Darren is not too happy about losing the world title, as you really can't blame the man. Mr. Bloomberg puts Darren in a matchup with Brock Lesnar, and because of that, he gets attacked for it. And then Dave attacks Darren after the matchup, as Darren did lose because he was unable to continue. AOA episode 52, can nothing happen on 51? On episode 52, we hear Dave talking about his action, pretty much indicating that he got no regret, and saying that at next level, he's going to do everything he can to keep the world championship. Yeah, Darren is still not happy, and he beats the snot out of Mr. Bloomberg. And punishment. On AOA episode 53, Darren Tarleton has a matchup with James Black inside of a steel cage, in which James Black actually wins. This was really a toss-up here, because you had two guys in two massive matches, and James Black was on his way to an I Quit match with Mac Wolf by this point. So it was really a toss-up of who could have won here, the guy in the World Championship match or the guy that's going to main event the show. Really massive toss-up. I probably shouldn't have booked that one. I probably should have booked something else, but okay. It is what it is. Also, it didn't help that they got attacked by a bunch of CTP guys, but we're going to talk about that on a different video. Got it? At next level, you had Dave versus Darren, with Dave retaining via DQ. You're probably wondering what happened, right? Maybe Mr. Bloomberg got involved. Crazy that would have been. Maybe Dave got, using the weapon or whatever. Nope, because of Lorenzo freaking Sampson getting involved and attacking both men. And by this point, yes, World Collide Season 2 with CTP and Culture Productions was on a roll. Oh, and at the time I'm recording this, it's his birthday. So happy birthday, bro, or belated at the time this video comes out. So, you the man. AOA episode 54, we have Darren Tarleton versus A2J. The winner gets added to a World Championship match at Breaking Boundaries, which was already set to be Dave versus Mac Wolf given the performance. A2J wins due to distraction, aka Lorenzo Sampson beating the snot out of Destry Tarleton and spray painting CTP on him, which is probably a little bit of revenge, because we did kind of show up on Raw, beat the snot out of them, spray painting AOA on them, so it was all well and good. On AOA episode 55, you had Dave beating Reaper in the main event. Pretty self-explanatory. AOA 57, you had Jackson Wade defeating Dave, because Dave decided to get involved in the business of All Out Revolution, as he took some little bribe money from Taskmaster to show up on AOR and beat the snot out of Andre Richardson, who attacked the Cabal by that point. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but pretty much it sets up this match here, and with Jackson Wade ended up picking up the victory. And on AOA episode 58, Dave attacks A2J after his match with Sean Wright. Darren still wants to fight Dave, so he attacks him anyways, even though Mr. Bloomberg did warn him and say if he did anything stupid or reckless, he would be suspended. And of course, Darren didn't care about that, because why would Darren listen to authorities, especially the guy that cost him the world title? Makes sense, right? And in the main event, it was Darren versus Johnny River to see who would be the number one contender after breaking boundaries. Johnny River ended up picking up a win, but Darren actually does get his wish, though, because Dave makes the challenge for Hell in a Cell on episode 61. So Dave is the main reason Darren doesn't get suspended. I think Darren owes Dave a thank you card, if you ask me. On AOA episode 59, Dave gets in Johnny's face and pretty much gets super kicked for it. Talk junk, get stomped. I know it ain't how it goes, but it just came to me like that in my head. Leave me alone. Dave then later took out his frustration on Mac Wolf by beating the snot out of him. Darren then accepts a Hell in a Cell match under one prior condition. Under two conditions, actually. The first condition is that, unfortunately, the match had to be non-title. But the second is that he gets an unsanctioned match with Mr. Bloomberg. Also, James Black to return and beat the snot out of Dave following the beatdown, causing him to make the save for Mac Wolf. I forgot to mention that. On AOA episode 60, you have Dave beating the returning James Black and then attempt to get involved in the main event of Darren versus Mr. Bloomberg. But, ladies and gentlemen, the debut of Mr. Jake Havoc getting involved and preventing Dave from doing any of that. And, yeah, this match pretty much went how it expected. Darren Tarleton beat the snot out of Mr. Bloomberg as he should have. AOA episode 61, Darren versus Dave inside Hell in a Cell. Darren gets the win. On AOA 62, Mac Wolf and A2J did go one-on-one, in which A2J did pick up the victory. Fast forwarding to AOA episode 63, Dave is back, and he pretty much mentioned that he's going to beat Mac Wolf and A2J, and they got nothing on him. Mac Wolf comes out, and he does, disagree with Dave, and he says that Dave isn't going to have to worry about A2J because the only reason A2J beat him was due to luck. A fight breaks out between Mac Wolf and Dave, only for A2J to come out, save Mac, but then attack Mac with a code breaker due to what Mac said about him. Dave, in the main event, it was Dave, Austin Wallace, and Jason Wells winning a six-man tag team match between Destry, who replaced Darren thanks to Austin Wallace attacking him, Mac Wolf, and A2J. Dave then attacked both men following the matchup, and Mac Wolf then attacked A2J when he got up to his feet. At Breaking Boundaries in the triple threat match, it is Dave and Jackson Wade who get into it verbally and then physically, in a whole night that included a lot of that stuff. And then Dave will go on to defend his championship in a triple threat match with Mac Wolf and A2J, with A2J picking up the win and finally becoming the all-out action world champion. And first off, that triple threat match was probably the match of the night for Breaking Boundaries. Also, Breaking Boundaries was kind of wild and notable for a lot of things that I encourage you guys to actually check out if you guys haven't done so already. Find it under the AOA playlist, or in fact, I'm even going to put it in the card here and right down below. Check it out, because it's really the catalyst for everything that's been happening with ACW and why ACW is a thing right now. So I would encourage you guys to check out that pay-per-view if you can. Either way, A2J is now the world champion, and with the action draft pretty much coming up right here next, let's get into how the reign of A2J is, as this is the final reign in this series. On the action draft, night one, A2J is pretty much happy about being the new world champion, only for Jackson Wade, the current All Out Revolution world champion, to downplay that and basically say, I don't know what the world you talking about. I don't know what type of time you on. This is my house. You just got lucky. A2J have a proper rebuttal because he ain't taking that disrespecting crap from nobody, and challenges Jackson Wade to a matchup on draft night 2. Fast forward to draft night 2, in which A2J takes on Jackson Wade in a special champion versus champions matchup. A2J picks up the win. Jackson Wade attacks him from behind after the match, and it's right here where I should go ahead and note that Mr. Bloomberg fired The Ice and Christina Miller from their positions of power. This is where they became assistant general managers, and Mr. Bloomberg has all control. Also, I will add, it is after this, we start seeing videos pretty much announcing that ACW will be showing up. So the final episode will be the final episode of the series leading into End of an Era. At the end of an era, all titles will be unified, and a last ACW will be born. So on Action Draft Night 2, that's where all of this went down. Well, on the final days of All Out Action, the act decided to go out with a bang, so he does the following thing. On AOA episode 64, the Ice announces that a 60-minute Iron Man match will be made, as the winner of A2J and RJ Miles, who was just drafted from All Out Revolution, will be facing off for the World Championship. And the winner, of course, will face Johnny Rivers, as he won that previously mentioned #1 contender match with Darren. A2J wins, and then he was attacked by RJ Myth. Austin Wallace attempts to cash in his level up contract, but Johnny Rivers intervenes, pretty much preventing that cash in from taking place. On AOA episode 65, RJ Miles is not really happy with the fact that he lost to A2J, beat them up in the parking lot. On AOA episode 66, RJ Miles and Johnny Rivers get into a little backstage verbal altercation, leading to RJ Miles making the challenge to Johnny Rivers to meet him on the first episode of ACW, in which Johnny Rivers accepts, and which why you guys got the match that you did. Then it was RJ Miles versus A2J in a no-hold-barred rematch for the World Championship, in which A2J wins. Then finally, on the final all-out action episode, AOA episode 67, A2J and Johnny Rivers have a backstage conversation, pretty much reliving all of their history from their time battling over the United States Championship and all of the respect and stuff that they gained for each other during that time, and how all that respect is probably about to go out the window in the 60-minute Iron Man match. A2J takes on Johnny Rivers in the final match in all-out action history, the 60-minute Iron Man match, in which they go to a draw with no sudden death, because I feel that's an overused concept. It's a draw. A2J retains, and Jackson Wade attacks Johnny Rivers and A2J after the match. And he gets into a fight with RJ Miles, and RJ Miles go down to the ring to try to attack A2J, only for A2J to pop him up and catch him with a code breaker. Yeah, safe to say we did a lot down that final stretch of that all-out action episode. We were not playing around, all right? We were going out big. And go out big we shall. End of an era, ladies and gentlemen. It is Jackson Wade versus A2J in a title unification match. Champion versus champion. It ended via DQ because Austin Wallace gets involved, attacking both men. And then in the meantime, it was then later revealed on episode 1 that Austin Wallace cashed in his level up contract, since he was allowed to hold it until the tail end of ACW's first season, since the season was ending prematurely. And then Austin Wallace is now your current ACW World Champion, and is now set to face Jackson Wade and A2J in a ladder match at ACW Mission X. Oh my word, so much history, so many storylines, so much lineage behind the world title. I think honestly probably one of the better booked world championships in the series, better booked championships in the series. The only exception to that is probably the All-Star title, or any title on AOR, because I think AOR has some pretty good title runs too. And so much history, so much lineage. It was great. It was a good time, man. It was a good time. I think the only downtime I could probably say was Monster's second run with the world title. Definitely is a standout one for the wrong reason. Darren easily had the best world title reign out of the bunch. If A2J's reign had the chance to go a little bit longer, I think A2J definitely would have been up there from the face side of things. But I think everything after Monster's second reign was good to great. Darren, I think he easily had like the all-time world championship record. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this will be the end of Behind the Action episode 2 with the world title. Thank you all for your patience with this. I know it took a minute, so I hope you all enjoyed. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and also click the bell icon that way you don't miss anything else. Spread the word about the channel. To the next time I see you guys, be a boss, and I will holla at you guys later.